special guest.
All right, and we are on. Welcome everyone back. This is another episode of the GTM Kickback, the _1 go-to-market leadership interview and strategy podcast in the world. I'm your host, Joey Brodsky, and we are back with another fantastic guest, Mr. TK Kader. TK was the CEO and founder at ToutApp, backed by Andreessen Horowitz, Jackson Square Ventures, and a number of prominent angel investors across Silicon Valley. After scaling ToutApp, it was acquired by Marketo, where TK went on to join Marketo's executive team and serve as their senior vice president of strategy. After running a 2-year transformation as part of the executive team, Marketo was acquired by Adobe for $4.75 billion. TK now spends his time as a strategic advisor to 250 plus B2B SaaS founders globally. As founder of Unstoppable Strategies, he finds and helps founders grow their startups faster through his weekly YouTube videos, link in the description, and his application-only SaaS Go-To-Market Program, link in the description. Welcome, TK. Thanks for joining, man.
Thanks for having me, Joey, and I appreciate the very kind introduction. That was awesome.
Yeah, anything else to add to that? I mean, impressive background, huge exits, working with some of the best VCs in the world, and obviously just such a really interesting career and position you're in right now in your company that you lead. That we'll dive into quite a bit more, but great.
Yeah, I guess you can add professional YouTuber to it now. Now that
pro YouTuber,
we run one of the fastest YouTube channels about building SaaS companies. So that's the only thing. I guess we got to update the bio on
that. I love it, man. No, it's all tremendous stuff. I'm excited to talk to you because obviously what you do is so prevalent to everything that we do here, which is talking about go-to-market strategy, talking with the best leaders and consultants in the space, and giving real tactical advice to help people grow their businesses and scale their organizations in the B2B SaaS world. So this is what you do on a day-to-day basis. You help founders build a go-to-market strategy and scale their businesses. So what, I guess, is sort of a first question to kick us off. What do you look at first to understand where people are at, and maybe even tell us a bit about the stage and timing that you normally come into these engagements, and like how do you help people pick their go-to-market direction and advise them from a high level?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I'll tell you why we exist and why we do what we do here at Unstoppable.
Sorry, the webcam thing slid on. Yep.
There you go. So I'll tell you why we do what we do here at Unstoppable. We focus on the stage where sales and marketing is still founder-led. So for all the go-to-market leaders that are out there, you're not going to get involved if you're good at a very early stage when the product is still not proven, the market's not proven, you don't even know if you can sell it. Like there are all these uncertainties. Generally, great go-to-market leaders, whether it's in marketing or sales or business development, get involved when a bunch of stuff is kind of already in place. And so that's where we get involved, because what we found is there's a lot of founders that are really trying to figure out sales and marketing. And these founders usually come from a technical background. So I come from a technical background. These founders are trying to figure out how to get to product market fit. I've taken multiple companies to product market fit. And these founders are trying to teach themselves sales and marketing. And that's what I had to do to make my company successful. And so I said, you know what, instead of them just sitting in a room alone, let's put out a YouTube episode every single week on how to think about sales and marketing, go to market as a founder, coming from an engineering perspective. And so that's why we exist. That's the stage we get involved in. And as we work with founders, typically what we see is they'll get initial revenues and scale going. If they already have some revenues, they figure out how to build a more scalable machine. As things start to hum, two things happen. One, they're able to raise more funding very effectively, or they get to profits. And two, it's a lot easier to go to a great go-to-market leader and say, hey, I got this little engine that is working, and I bet you can 10x it. And all of a sudden, go-to-market leaders are a lot easier to recruit. So that's why we do what we do.
How did you do this for yourself back in the day without having someone like yourself, right, consulting and telling you how to, or at least giving you sort of advice and guidelines, right? Because you figured this out all on your own, and that's why you're, I guess, astutely qualified to show people and demonstrate how to do it again, right? So what did you do earlier on when you were actually building your business as a technical leader?
I was very lucky. At ToutApp, we were the pioneers in sales engagement platforms. We were one of the first companies that made it where if you need to send out 8 emails to turn a lead into a meeting, we automated that. And because of what we were building, I naturally got exposed. My customers were salespeople and marketing people. And so I was lucky enough to have customers and I had to surround myself with people that were revenue leaders because I was selling to them. As an engineer, never having done sales or marketing except for an internship in college where I had to cold call, and I was selling them a product that would 10x their productivity and get them more pipeline. And so in that process, I was lucky enough to be around people that were smart and I learned a lot from them. And I was like, oh my God, I got to embrace sales and marketing. And so I learned a ton from them. And from there, I was able to have really great investors that taught me a lot. And then probably read about 100 books on sales and marketing because I'm a nerd. And I was like, I'm going to figure the shit out of this. And so I went through 100 books and learned everything I could. And eventually got to a point where what I learned was with sales and marketing, there is nothing new under the sun. So the best books were the ones that were published 50 years ago that you could get off of eBay. And they're like 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing, really old book, but still very relevant in selling software today, like because the human brain hasn't changed. And so I started to go to what I call the source material to really understand the core principles of sales and marketing. And that made a big difference in my life.
That's really interesting. So tell me a bit, sorry to go back to my original question, the stage of businesses that you're coming into, they're founder led, they're sort of developing their go-to-market motions. What are sort of like the main objectives that you're helping people accomplish? Is it just creating like scalable revenue models or acquiring new customers, like, or all the above? Tell me a little bit of flavor there.
Yeah, typically when they start working with us, they have a relatively undefined go-to-market strategy, but have a product that's starting to come together pretty nicely. With some initial customers. And so what we focus on is how do you build a well-defined go-to-market machine, and how do you actually start to get more revenues flowing through founder-led growth. And so that as you start to get more traction, you're able to go recruit great leaders and get more funding.
What are some of the strategies that like you see out there working? Everyone talks about product-led growth being very, I guess, progressive, and a lot of companies trying to follow like the Calendly path or whoever else is out there, right, and sort of amplifying the markets. But also there's a lot of proof in science and like a large enterprise direct sales type organization. Like, I mean, I'm sure it's a mixed bag, but are there commonalities and trends in terms of like what you see successful in terms of strategies that you're employing at those stages?
Yeah, the core principles we follow is for any SaaS company or any B2B company, there's three core pillars. You have the market you're going after, you have the product that you're building, and then you have your go-to-market motions. And a lot of what strategies work under go-to-market is purely determined by what's the market you're selling into and how urgent and important is the problem you're solving for, and how does the product solve it. Like that's what really determines whether you actually go product-led or you do sales-driven, whether you're more marketing heavy or you're more sales heavy. And so when we work with founders, we first start to really understand what is the market that you're going after and what is the ideal customer. That's the first pillar that we always work with and really flesh out. Mm-hmm. Once you have that first pillar of this is the market we're going after, then the second pillar that really comes in is cool for that market. Why is your product urgent and important? And why is it a transformation? Typically people buy things for transformation, not improvement, especially in SaaS. And so the second pillar that comes in is how do we actually craft the strategic narrative that you go out to the market with to really show that they need your product. A lot of times people skip the ICP, the ideal customer profile exercise. They don't really create a value proposition or messaging, and they'll get into sales calls or they'll run ads without a proper message. So those are the first two pillars. Once you have those first two pillars, you have a strategy, and then it becomes about execution. And one of the biggest mistakes even marketing teams and marketing leaders make is they're doing a different thing every week. This week it's TikTok, next week it's LinkedIn, third week is Google Ads, and then they give up. And what we found is if you can standardize on a core set of marketing and sales activities that you run every week, no matter what, and you drive towards what we call channel mastery, where you're bringing that strategic message to your ICP on a consistent basis and you're iterating, then you get a much more scalable machine. And so we don't get too many into fads. We get into these core principles that are true no matter what. ICP, manifesto, which is your strategic message, and your Broadway show, which is the consistent set of activities. And we teach founders how to do this. They start to get it working. We give them exactly who to hire next, whether it's a VP of marketing or a VP of sales or a demand generation manager or an AE. And then we help them hire those people, and then they start to scale, and then they also raise money. And that's how the whole thing comes together.
Let's talk about that next piece. Obviously, that's what I do day to day, is help early stage founders or even later stage companies like hire their go-to-market teams. That's particularly important when you're like at the founder-led stage of your business and figuring out these go-to-market motions. Because you get the wrong VP of sales hire, which, some people say it's 90% of VPs of sales don't work out. Some people say it's 50%. Like, it's a very, regardless of statistics behind it, like, it's a very high turnover position. It has a low success rate compared to, I think, other positions of that stature and that stage. And it can set your organization back by millions in ARR, by years on your timeline to exit, by general brand sentiment in the market, by not having the right person like representing you in like a commercial capacity. What sort of stage or what objectives do you tell people to, look for or get to before making that hire? And then how do you go about like deciding what kind of person is best, if it's the VP of sales or it's the VP of marketing, or if it's something entirely different to set that up?
Yeah, the folks that are, that we work with, we call them unstoppable CEOs. And so we have extensive training on when they get into the fundraising mode, like how you structure your pitch deck. We do pitch org reviews. We introduce it to investors. Similarly, we have very extensive training on what not to do and what to do when you're hiring, because there are a lot of caveats, as I'm sure you know as well. The biggest thing that we try to teach our unstoppable CEOs and founders is, number one, you got to realize that every go-to-market leader, good or bad, are exceptional at selling one thing, and that's themselves. And so you have to look at it through that lens. And so we teach them like, hey, here's what to look for and what not to look for, and what to really test when you're talking to people. Some of the things we really talk about, like let's just say on the VP of sales side, is the success of a VP of sales is highly dependent on your ideal customer profile and your sales motion. A VP of sales that is a stellar VP of sales and an enterprise motion won't work really well for your land and expand transactional motion. And so thinking about what are the nuances in a VP of sales, how they're built differently based on stage. And fortunately for us, because we do all this work around ICP and messaging, they have all this data. And so like, oh yeah, I know my ICP. I know what kind of VP of sales we want to look for and what kind of segment of the market they have success in. We also talk about, where do you source these people? It's when even if you are a company backed by Andreessen Horowitz, it's still going to be a little bit harder to recruit a great VP of sales because there are just not that many of them. And so thinking about how to recruit them, how to incentivize them, for founders, it's a lot easier to recruit a VP of sales when you can tell them like, here's my last trailing 12 months of revenue bookings and deal flow. And here's how we generate pipeline. At that point, the VPs are like, hell yeah, I can sell the shit out of this. So we teach them these core components. Similarly, for VP of marketing, one of the things we talk about is for an early stage company, I'm not saying this is bad, but the worst thing you can do is hire a brand marketer. You don't need a brand marketer. Brand marketing is great, but it can come later. Ultimately, what you really need is pipeline or lead flow or trials. And so we teach them the difference between a brand marketer and a demand generation marketer, and the core of what's direct response marketing versus brand marketing, or, even something like community marketing, which is, again, an important thing to do, but a very different discipline and a very different need than what you really need in those early stages. And so having been a founder, you just go through, why is the churn rate so high on VPs of sales and VPs of marketing? I would say a big reason for it is people are just hiring the wrong kind of marketer into the roles, and then they're set up for failure. And so we try to teach our unstoppable CEOs on exactly what to look for and what they really need, and how to go in the right order of who to hire.
There's this SaaStr article that I share all the time by Jason Lemkin, I think is his name, Lemke, called the 44
Lemkin.
Different types of VPs of sales that I have studied a bit and used to sort of discuss with early stage founders, like all of the different possibilities from, a VP of sales hiring standpoint that you can make and
Yeah.
more realistically to show like all of the wrong ones that you can make if you don't take into consideration the things that you said, right? So the vertical, the sector, the stage, the scalability of businesses they've worked in before. Are they a 0 to 1 million ARR guy? Are they a 1 million to 10 million ARR guy? Are they a 10 million to 25 million ARR guy? Like all sales VPs are not built the same. And those are dramatically different types of persons, where some are built on evangelizing products and doing like true initial go-to-market motions. Some of them are centered around building that like center of revenue excellence and combining marketing and customer success workflows. And some of them are built on creating scalable dashboards and monitoring systems for like big sales organizations, right? With dozens and dozens of reps. And I think a lot of people get their eyes set on like, we just need someone that's in our industry, or we just need someone that, you know, talks smooth to them in their interviews and sells themselves, right? And they end up dishing out too much equity to a person that's not going to realistically help scale their business in the best way. And it's a shame that it fails so often. So I'm glad that it's a better conversation now, where people are I think becoming more and more conscious of this. When is like the timing right? I guess you kind of answered this, but just to define that, like what metrics do you look for when you're talking to your unstoppable CEOs to say, okay, it is time to make that first go-to-market leadership hire and pass some of this responsibility off?
Yeah, the core principle that we teach our founders is the idea of scaffolding. Here's the absolute wrong way to do it. The absolute wrong way to do it is to hire a VP of sales that's going to only manage reps and not close deals, because they're the dashboards VP of sales. I think Jason Lampkin's article is fantastic for this. And then say, go close some deals or sell it. And now you have a VP of sales that's very expensive. He now needs to hire some reps, and then you hire some reps and there's no pipeline. And so now they have to figure out how to do outbound, and they've never done outbound before. It takes 12. That is the absolute wrong direction to go. And so we teach this principle of scaffolding. And the idea of scaffolding is, if you're building a building, first build the scaffold and then build the actual building in it. So we teach scaffolding in the way that let's first focus on pipeline before anything else. Because if you don't have pipeline, the worst thing in the world is a bunch of reps sitting around with no pipeline. They're not going to magically close deals if there's no pipeline. And if you have $1 million target, then you need to have $5 million of pipeline. That's just rule of thumb, because you're going to win 20% of deals. That's also the rule of thumb. So we always say, cool, let's first build out your pipeline motions. Like, let's figure out how you're going to generate pipeline. Is it through SDRs? Is it through marketing? And let's bring on the right person for that. Maybe it's SDRs or a demand generation manager. In order to make those people successful, let's make sure your ICP and your messaging is right. So when you do those things, then you start to build a scaffolding around pipeline. Once you have some pipeline flowing, the founders should be closing the deals. Once you know that you can close these deals at, say, a 30 to 40% win rate, that means you bring an average human in that's not a founder. They can close at a 20% win rate. So then you start to build on the scaffolding and build some reps. So now you've got a demand generation manager and you have some reps. You've got pipeline flowing. You have some reps that are closing. The founders are all owning this still scaffolding. Now you can go to a VP of marketing candidate and say, hey, here's what we've been doing. And we need to 2x or 3x the pipeline, but this is what works. A great VP of marketing person who is relatively risk averse, because these are not entrepreneurs or founders, but are going to be like, oh, I can 2x that. That's really shitty. And they're like, cool, thank God, come on in, right? Which is a very different conversation than, we don't have any revenue, we don't know how to sell this. Can you do the sales and marketing thing for us? So then you build some more scaffolding. Then you go to your VP of sales and say, hey, we used to have this much pipeline. We just hired a VP of marketing. We have this much pipeline now. These 2 reps are ramped up in this way. This is how much they're closing. Can you come in, make them better, and hire 5 more reps? And he's like, oh, hell yeah, I can do that. And now you've got a building, and you now have got a go to market motion. And so this principle of scaffolding, and we go much more detailed on exactly what sequence, what order, and how to actually build up that scaffolding and how to hire the right people, right down to job descriptions of who you should hire, what to look out for, and then introductions through great people like you who actually have a network of VPs of marketing. And so that's how unstoppable CEOs operate when they work with us.
It's really interesting, and I love how conscious you are of building a system or building a company that is actually attractive to these persons to come into. There's so many. I tell you this from the recruiter inside of me, right? Like there's hundreds of early stage SaaS businesses offering equity and a 5-year roadmap to exit in $1 million, right? Like that used to be, I think, really cool and kind of easy to sell. And that was like attractive in its own nature. But with the increase in like the early stage technology investment scene, with just innovation sort of running deep and a lot of incentives and a lot of, I guess, greater sentiment and resources for entrepreneurs to actually launch their businesses, there's a lot more of those out there, right? Where that story becomes a bit more redundant and you need to like actually have something a bit more tangible to attract the top 10% of talent, especially in like the go-to-market world, right? The number one thing that sales reps, sales leaders, marketing reps, and marketing leaders are asking me when they're qualifying, because they're qualifying these opportunities because they have a dozen of me's like hitting them up on like a regular basis, is like, what are the resources that are set up there for me to be successful in the long run with this organization, right? What is the pipeline? What is the closed win ratio of leads into the organization right now? What are the tools? What's the measured investment into technology, leadership, and other like external vendors to help support like marketing or sales endeavors? They're asking these questions every single time. So like if you're a CEO and you're not prepared for that and you're just wanting like the VP of sales to come in and figure those things out, right? And then they don't figure it out in 12 or 18 months and you have to give them the can and you're all pissed off about it. Like it's only one person's mistake. So I love how you get that, right? In terms of like other things and to create I guess, recruitable environment for like a go-to-market leader or even go-to-market reps early stage. Is there anything else that you're like advising on in terms of doing that or setting stuff up?
Yeah, I mean, we're not for everybody. I don't work with every single founder. The founders we tend to work with are the ones that actually want to embrace sales and marketing.
Yeah.
And I think that, like, to what you were speaking, like when you're recruiting a great go-to-market leader, they want to know that the founder values sales and marketing, right? If the founder doesn't value sales and marketing and they're hiring sales and marketers in disdain, you don't want to work there. You don't want to justify your existence. You don't want to, like, you want a founder that understands just how hard it is to get attention in the world today and marketing.
Yeah.
You want a founder that understands what a grind it is to follow up on deals and go through procurement and security reviews to get a deal done. You want founders that have gone through that, and that way you feel valued. And so those are the kind of founders, the ones that want to embrace sales and marketing, that we love, because they're like, I'm a fantastic engineer. I have deep domain knowledge in this industry, but I need to know how to sell SaaS and market SaaS so that I understand the craft. Those are the people we work really well with. And I think those are the people that also recruit and attract the best talent, because now that person knows, like, when I work at this company, my boss is really going to value what I do because he gets it or she gets it.
Do you prescribe to the idea of like the greater and very enhanced like team-led selling motion? That's something I think it's obvious. I think everyone knows of it, but it's coming to further and further extremes. Whereas I have old school CEOs that hit me up and they're upset because they can't get a ambitious salesperson to just work on a super aggressive quota for 100% commission incentivized role with no base salary, right? That's the extreme example, right?
Yeah.
But that the nature of the world is like getting attention isn't just a salesperson out there knocking on doors. It's so much more of like a team-led endeavor, from the branding to the marketing to the demand generation to the CEO doing discussions to the product attributes to the website. So there's so many more pieces and elements to like that sales engagement that are out of the control of the salesperson or the account executive at the end of the day. Do you sort of prescribe to that? It sounds like you sort of consult as if that is the case with these people.
Yeah, definitely. There's two things worth mentioning there, right? It's such a good point you're making. I think the first thing is, I think of sales and marketing as almost a seesaw. The better the marketing is, the easier it is to sell it. The shittier the marketing is, the harder it is to sell it. And if marketing and sales can work together, the better off you're going to be. Mainly because if you are getting into a demo with a buyer and they are absolutely the right ICP buyer, the ideal customer profile buyer, they've already been educated on why your brand is the right one through marketing. And you're now going in to say, hey, you can trust me and the brand, and they revalidate everything they've been taught. Now sales and marketing, like, you're going to dominate, right? Now,
Mhm.
if they've never heard of you, they've never been taught anything by you, and you're going in like, hey, you want to buy some software? Do you want a demo? And they're like, who are you? Like, right? And so
Yeah.
they work together. And the better the marketing, the easier the selling. Not to say that sales is easier. It's just that's how the dynamic works. And sales can focus on higher order activities versus what marketing should have done. So I'm a big believer in making sure that the entire organization works together, all the way down to, you know, there's no substitute for when a deal is running where the CEO reaches out and saying, hey, I know you've been working with Dylan over there. I just wanted to send you a message and say, you'd be a great fit for what we do. We'd love to work together. If there's anything you need from me, please let me know. Like you should do that. That makes a huge difference. I love getting air cover on deals because people want to hear from the CEO.
Yeah.
And so I think that team dynamic is very important because there's a reason sales exists and marketing exists and leadership exists. Like all three are needed to build an organization and make it successful. And I think to your other point with the team selling, is this whole like, I don't believe in zero commission reps. Two reasons. One, it signals to the person that I'm trying to hire that I have zero conviction that they'll be successful in the role. Like I'm not taking on any risk. And I don't think you're going to get the best candidates that way.
No.
You're just not. A great sales rep is not going to accept a 100% commission role because they're like, I don't care how good I am, but I'm not going to work here because if they don't have conviction on putting some skin in the game. Like that's how I would think about it as a sales leader or a sales rep. And I think on the flip side, I think the other thing to think about with zero commission is why would you? The competition is so there right now. There is so many SaaS companies, so many founders, so much funding, but there's not enough salespeople. There's not enough great VPs of sales. There's not enough great VPs of marketing. There just isn't. They're just
Not even
good
close.
good ones, right?
Right.
And so the good ones have better offers, quite frankly. So if you're not willing to put down a solid base and put skin in the game and say, look, my machine works, and if you do everything I tell you to do, you're going to make money and I'm going to incentivize you for it. Unless you're coming from that place, you're just not good enough in the market because there's plenty of CEOs, a lot of them unstoppable CEOs that are just doing that. They're like, look, here's my pipeline. Here's my scaffolding. Here's our numbers. You want in? That's how you want to recruit the best people in the market.
Yeah. And it's almost like the CEO's total job, which this isn't like a traditional mindset. I don't think in SaaS, if you talk with like more legacy style technology organizations, it's you need to put every effort that you can as the leader of that organization to make that salesperson's job as easy as can be, right? Make it as easy for them to get deals done, easy for them to get leads, easy for them to be resourced and have the technology or I guess the ability to actually get stuff done and generate revenue and close deals at the end of the day, because that's what you want anyways, right? So why make it any harder and just push that burden off to someone else, right?
Totally.
Which is just going to get them frustrated, make your company less recruitable in the future. I mean, you can't attract top talent, and then it becomes sort of a flywheel of depreciating like sales performance and slowdown in growth and like revenue acquisition, which no one wants. That sucks, and it sounds like everyone would be kind of pissed off and not happy to work with.
Yeah. No, that's right. And to your point, I think that the thing to remember here is that ultimately you need to have a point of view on how this thing's going to work in terms of sales and marketing and what the market wants and what the product does and what your go-to-market is as the founder. And I think for the go-to-market leaders listening, if you meet a founder or CEO that's like, you're going to figure out the sales and marketing thing, right? Like, don't take that job. You're better off at a company that has invested in at least building some scaffolding and saying, now we can plug in an expert and they can do their best work and make this 10 times better. That's where you want to be, because those people value sales and marketing and what you do and what your craft is. And that's how I approach it.
Yeah, 100%. And sorry, I know I'm going a tiny bit off script here. On the flip to that, if you are speaking to one of those go-to-market leaders right now and they're considering joining like an unstoppable company versus a company that isn't, right, in your portfolio or whatnot, right? I use that as euphemism.
That's how we think about it too.
What questions do they need to ask to make sure that opportunity is qualified, resourced, and like going to give them the, I guess, best percentage of success that they could have, right? Or the best likelihood for success. Like what do they ask? What do they need to look for? Not everyone knows that.
Let's start broader and we can get more specific on roles, right? Like whether you're a go-to-market leader, like a VP of sales, VP marketing, chief revenue officer, any unstoppable company you go to, you can ask these 3 things and you'll get it. Number 1, show me your ideal customer profile. Show me where you win, where you lose, why. Like I want to understand that, even in the early stages. Show me your strategic narrative. Like help me understand what the competitive dynamics are and why you win and how you differentiate. And show me what your numbers look like in terms of pipeline generation and win rates. Like show me your lead to opportunity ratio and opportunity to close ratio. If you can't get those 3 things from an opportunity, there's something wrong. And without those 3 things, I think of like, any go-to-market, I get a lot of VPs of sales, VPs of marketing reaching out to me and like, hey, I'm thinking about this next opportunity. What do you think? You work with a lot of SaaS companies. I'm like, listen, the way you want to approach this is almost like a VC. You're not investing your money, you're investing your time. And in a way, it's your money too. So if you can't figure out what their ideal customer is, what their strategic differentiation is, and what their metrics currently look like, you should not, if they can't give that to you, you should not take that role. And when you have those 3 things in front of you, you can have a constructive conversation with the CEO and understand if they're deeply involved in this and they understand this, because if they don't, then you're in trouble. So that's how I approach it. And I'll tell you, like, one of the coolest things that I've gotten to see is we started with companies that were at, a few $1,000s in revenue. They scaled, they raised their subsequent round, they brought on VPs, and the VPs got plugged into our internal training so that they were like, oh, now I know exactly how they built out their ICP and what their strategic narrative. And they started using the training to revamp the strategic narrative, knowing what they know. And it becomes this full cycle where the entire organization speaks the same language around go-to-market. And I think that's the coolest thing. And so if you are evaluating, ask for those 3 things: ICP, strategic narrative, metrics. Like just look at that. If they are not willing to share that, they don't have that, walk away. There's something seriously wrong.
Yeah, I love that. It's so it's based in like reality. That's what it sounds like. It's like it just sounds like that should be the case always, but
I know,
it rarely is. Like that's real data, real analytics, like real data that's actually proving something.
I'll tell you, like, with the YouTube channel, when we do an episode every week, and with founders, when I work with them, like, I don't think I say anything that's like groundbreaking. I feel like a high school physics teacher. I'm literally just regurgitating the laws of the universe. In this case, the laws of SaaS. Like, this is not the groundbreaking, but it is between you and me. Like, you do this, I do this. Like, it's crazy how many people don't follow it. Like, we are ignoring the laws of physics basically when you're doing this, which is crazy.
When do people need to take in like a qualitative understanding or opinion of a company into that same, I guess, decision, right? Say if they're going up for an organization, they have those things. Do you believe in like feelings about companies, even if they hit the marks on all of those different metrics? Like if there's something off about it?
Yeah,
like,
no, absolutely. I mean, if anything, I think we maybe make some decisions too much on feeling and not enough on the artifacts of the business. But I think feelings are just as important. Like, look, if you're going to sign up for a startup, there's going to be quarters where you're missing a quarter and you're going to be in a room with the CEO, and you got to get a feeling of like, is this going to be the CEO where when we have completely messed something up, she and I, or him and I, can still go get a drink and say, okay, well, that sucked. What do we do next? Right? Like that's a feeling, and that's an important feeling, because if you don't have that, if you can't see yourself doing that, then I don't think you're going to make it. Like, neither of you, no one's going to make it. And so I think feelings are important. You also, I think, have to care about who you're selling to and what you're selling. I think if you can't get behind that, don't do it. And so I think those are feelings too. And I think, interestingly enough, sometimes we're going off of a broad-based feeling. But when you look at an ICP of a company, you're then can look at, does this ICP make sense quantitatively? Is the TAM big enough? You can also look at, like, do I want to sell to these people? Do I want to market to these people? Yeah. When you're looking at the narrative, when you look at it, like, can I really look at this and wholeheartedly say this is a true transformation that every single person in our ICP absolutely needs, and I'm going to make it my mission to go do that? Like, then you're like jazzed about marketing for this company and selling for this company, and you want to feel that. So feelings are important, but in the context of what the broader things that are important are. And I think both are important in doing that.
Absolutely love it. I know we're getting close to kind of time here. I want to be conscious of that, TK. last question we sort of have marked down, and I'll take this sort of in a cap off to the whole conversation, is like, how do you define success across your portfolio of companies you consult with, across all of these different VPs of sales, marketing, or just go-to-market leaders in general, or go-to-market practitioners in general, right? Like, what sort of metrics are you looking for success in, I say, the endeavor to build scalable revenue models inside like an organization, right? Do you define those clearly at all?
We primarily work with B2B companies, and with B2B, like when you have a B2C consumer company, it's very binary. It either worked or it didn't work, and it just kind of dies after that.
Yeah.
With B2B companies, it's a slow marination process to really get it going. And so we have different levels of success, some short-term, some long-term. Short-term levels of success is, are we getting more clarity in exactly why we exist and what the transformation is? And are we getting incremental improvements in how the market reacts to our marketing and sales? So we look at that. Long-term, obviously, ultimately, the only thing that really matters is revenues. Are we generating more revenues or not? Are we scaling or not? Are we raising more money to actually feed that machine or not? And fortunately for us, we've gotten success. We are at over 250 CEOs that we work with already in our programs, over 30,000 subscribers in our YouTube channel. And fortunately, we've seen both the short-term clarity come from our clients, and also we've had companies that have gone on to raise C+ rounds, Series A rounds, bootstrap companies have kickstarted profitability. So the revenue success metric is also shown to be true. But we always are, we set expectations with clients on, this is what to expect short-term, and this is what to expect long-term. And the only thing that will make it where you fail is if you just stop iterating. So as long as we're iterating, we're going to get better and better and better, and it'll compound over time. And so the clients that do the best with us are the ones that keep iterating with us.
Love it. This is how I know you're so good at what you do, TK. It's because the shit is not easy. It's so hard, and so many people fail at it. And you make it sound so simple, right? Like physics class, like you said. That's how you know you're good at this, man. So thank you for blessing us with some of your time and going over this. Is there anything you can say? Where can the people find you? Can they reach out, or are there certain circumstances they can ping you on or follow
absolutely.
you for?
The first thing to do is just go check out our YouTube channel. We have over 150 episodes. It's completely free. So you just go to getunstoppable.com/YouTube, and that's the best way to
that'll be linked below. Yeah, for everyone.
It'll be linked below. And then if you want to join us and you want to work together on your go-to-market, then just go to getunstoppable.com. And over there, pick the right program, and then you can meet with my team or myself, depending on, I take some of the calls, my team takes some of the calls. 99% of my time these days goes directly with our clients to work with them. And so depending on your revenue stage, we have different programs. And so would love to work together with your go-to-market and help you scale if you're a fit.
Lovely, man. Well, thanks so much, TK. Thank you, everyone, for listening. This was another episode of the GTM Kickback, #1 go-to-market leadership interview and strategy podcast in the world. That's a fact. And we'll see you next time. Thanks so much.
I heard it was the universe, but
the universe. Yeah, I might try that one. Might as well be. All right. Thanks so much.